Good morning, folks. It's Pawpaw, and try to get a little bit better position. The smoke kind of in my eyes here. Good morning. We're going to talk about branding irons. Now, I got several branding irons in there. Several branding irons are in that fire right now, heating up. Branding is controversial. I realize that. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. Even those that do it sometimes don't want to talk about their city friends or somebody that don't ever see it done. Don't want to offend no one. But as controversial as it may be, I'm going to go back to my friend Jack, the old rancher I told y'all about. He and I talked about branding several times, and I've always branded. Now, I haven't branded in years, and because it's labor intensive. Those that do it, still do it, they know what I'm talking about. You need a lot of help, unless you really got some good facilities, which we never did. It's a lot of work. All the way back when the old guys used to rope a calf and tie him down or hold him down and brand him, to modern days they put them in head gates and stuff. Now there's lots of ways to brand. Hot iron is what we always used, but I think some folks these days do freeze branding. There's other ways to identify, tattoos in the ear, microchips possibly, necklace with a tag on it, ear tags, all these things that we'll talk about. Maybe not so much today, but we will do it. Today we're just going to talk about branding. And branding is permanent. Well, tattoo would be permanent too. But let me tell you something about tattoos. If you're out in the pasture and you try to identify a cow, you're not going to be able to get off and just walk up and start checking ears for tattoos. It's not going to be possible. Yeah, maybe inside a controlled environment like a corral or something you might could, a chute, But if you've lost an animal and you put the word out, I've got a certain animal out with a tattoo in their ear, whatever the tattoo may be, chances are nobody's ever going to look in those ears. But a brand is going to stand out. Brand is permanent. It's like a tattoo on a person. It's there unless you have it removed. But I'm going to show you some things that how we branded and talk about some of the brands we've used. And let me get my coffee. I've already had about 3 cups, and I'm going to finish up one, and then we're going to talk about it. Branding irons have been on this place for well over 100 years. I'm going to show you the first brand that came to this place. It belonged to my great-grandfather, Dan Newman. And he passed the brand down to my grandpa and grandma. Used the same brand. And they passed it down to my dad and my uncle, who run cattle together back in the old days in the big range out here. So they had to distinguish, the DN on a cow, on my dad's cows or on my uncle's cows, because his dad. It had to be something different. So my dad come up with an idea, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, doing a little bit different with the DN. He used the DN with what he called a bar over. It's a straight line across the top. And my uncle, cousin's dad, he used the DN, but he did a half circle over the top so they could distinguish their cattle. Now, when I was in ag, and my dad always used the DN, when I was in ag back in, I guess, my senior year, I wanted to build my own brand. We was doing that stuff in ag and amateurs. We were amateurs. But I wanted to build my own brand, but I had a problem. I've always went with the name Gene. Lester's my name. Like Lester, my son over there in LE too. But I never went with Lester except for on legal stuff. when I owed somebody. And maybe pass them off to Lester. But when I owed somebody, I always had to sign Lester Mark. But just from people that knew me and stuff, it was always just Gene. But I had a problem in ag trying to make a G and an M. I could make two different letters. I wanted them to join. And I just never could figure it out. I've seen so many ways I could have done it later, but at the time, it didn't click. You ever have days like that? Things don't click? Yeah, I have a lot of them. At least that's what Gigi says. It ain't clicking with you. Anyway, so I just did a LM connected, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. In fact, I'm going to show you the brands that we've used here. The DN, the LM that I did, and Lester uses the Rocket M. Y'all seen his brand on his Insignia stuff down there, the Rocket M. It's a beautiful brand. And then in 1990, we got some registered beef bastard, started raising registered beef bastard cattle, and we had to have a different brand as a breed brand, and for like our farm. And we come up with what was called the Crooked Sky. And that name come from an old movie way back, and it always stuck with us, Crooked Sky. And so we come up with a brand for those registered cattle. Now let me talk about registered cattle for a minute before we start with the branding. Registered cattle, or most breed associations that I'm familiar with, if you're raising registered cattle and you're the breeder, when you get ready, before you sell those animals, you put your brand on them, your breed brand, your brand. And then, but they also, to correspond with the paperwork that goes with them, showing their family tree, they have to have also a number brand. And usually it's below, it could be above, but I've always seen them below that breed brand. Because take, for instance, you take Tex over there, for instance. Tex is a registered animal. There's a breed brand, the breeder, whoever that guy was, has his brand on Tex, but he may have had 100 bull calves that year, on his ranch. And they all may look just like Tex. So to distinguish Tex and his bloodline, his parents and their family tree from another, there has to be a number. And for that breeder, that's the only time that number will be used is on that particular animal. So you can always spot that animal in the pasture, and you can go through your records and say, okay, let's just say it's 101 or whatever. Okay, here, 101. Then you can look at the papers and see who his dad was, who his mom was, who his grandpa's was, his grandma's, right on back. So that's registered animals usually, if not always, have a number. Now, like I told you, there's several ways of putting identifications on animals, but we're only going to talk about branding today, hot branding. That's the one I'm familiar with. I know other animals will have, like dairy animals, a lot of times you'll see a necklace with a number, and that's fine. On a dairy, maybe a big pastures and stuff, they're more gentle type cattle. They're not going to be out in the brush and stuff. You get that tore off, but or ear tags. But we're going to talk about branding. I'm going to show you some. Maybe do a little bit here. And I'm going to take you right now and show you the 4 brands that have been used on this particular place over the last 100 years plus. Okay? So let me turn this around. All right. This is the LM that I come up with. You can see it's not really perfect, but I wasn't a perfect kid. Ask my mom. Well, if she was still here, she'd tell you I was not the perfect kid. This was the Crooked Sky brand, and it was beautiful. And that was what we used on the registered beef masters that we raised. This is the old DN. This is the old brand. That's well over 100 years in use. The same brand, same old stamp iron. And they did a good job back then as I did on mine probably almost 100 years later. And then this is the brand Lester uses, the Rocket M. But this old board here, this old board was branded probably 20, 30 years ago. It wasn't all that long. We went with this brand in 1990, so it was probably around then we made this board. This hung out here at the shop forever. I took it down so you guys could see it. So, anyway, that's the brands that we have used here. And like I say, in the last few years, I have not branded at all. And it's, like I say, it's a controversial thing with people, and so you don't want to really get into that because some say, oh, it's so cruel. Yes, it probably is. Yes, it hurts them. Yes, it probably does. But I'll tell you something about that, and I agree with my old friend Jack. If you have an animal that's not branded, now listen, just like in Hurricane Harvey, it gets loose, it gets out, it gets washed out of here, fence gets down, it gets gone. You may not ever get that animal back. What kind of fate did that animal have? Well, if it drowned, it drowned. It wouldn't matter if it had a brand or not, but if somebody found it, unbranded, and took it, did it go to another ranch to live out a nice long life? Did it get sold to a packer and somebody to butcher it? Or was it taken home and butchered? No brand. Who could prove it wasn't theirs? And I lost cattle. And so did several others in this neighborhood that got cattle washed out during Harvey. We possibly would have got them back if it had been branded, those that didn't drown. Billy did not have a brand. He swam out 2 miles downriver. Along with my neighbor had some cattle, unbranded. Billy ended up with 4 of those cows, and we got those back. 2 other cows were brought back to me by mistake, and they were mine. It was funny that when they were loading Billy up, the guy, my well man, called me and said, I'm gonna bring Billy to you. We're penning cattle today. They was gathering up cattle all up and down the roads, and there was some individual going up and down the road claiming unbranded cattle. And what got me was nobody ever asked for an ID or wrote down a license number or anything. They just, Good Samaritans taking everybody's word for it. Okay, I'll back up here, we'll load her for you. And he had made several trips in and out of these places where they were loading cattle or penning cattle, gathering up unbranded cattle. Well, he claimed 2 of mine that I know of, but when they were loading Billy, these 2 cows run up in the trailer before Billy. And they didn't want to take a chance of Billy getting back out because he was a little bit trouble loading. So the guy says, my well man said, look, I'll bring them right back. I'm going to go unload this bull. I'll bring them back. Well, when he got here to unload Billy, I said, whoa, he's fixing to leave. I said, those 2 are mine. I had all the pictures of my cattle in my phone. And I opened my phone up, and here they were, the pictures of those very cattle in the pasture, and the pictures were dated. And so it's my proof, but I didn't have to prove it to him. Anyway, he believed me. But anyway, we unloaded him. And I said, you tell the guy, come see me. I'd like to see him. He said, well, if he's still there, he says he'd already loaded up several and left. And he started describing some of the cattle the guy had left with. And I had some that would fit that description, but plus maybe somebody else did too. But anyway, who knows where those cattle went? Did they get butchered? Did they get sold off to another ranch? Now, the thing about a brand, if a cow is branded and she goes missing, you can call the sheriff's department, you can call the sale barns in the area and give them that information about the cow you're missing and the brand. And brand inspectors, when those cattle come in to be sold, they write those brands down. So it leaves a paper trail. You may not get that cow back, but you'll know who took the cow eventually, and you may be able to prosecute them if they stole it. And you may very possibly get it back. But unbranded cattle, there is no paper trail. It's just, Joe Blow brought a unbranded cow in and sold it, and it went to butcher, So, like Jack said, you brand one, it hurts them. Yeah, it hurts them. They get over it. They get well pretty quick if you do it right. And there's so many ways to do a brand. If you do it wrong, it's going to leave a big sore. You do it right, it's going to be like sunburn. I'm sure it'll be probably worse than sunburn. I ain't going to say it's not. But it's going to peel real soon. And the hair is going to grow right back and leave that outline of that brand. and at least your animal would be safe as far as somebody's trying to steal it. If it's not branded, then who knows where it's going to go. Anyway, I'm going to get branding iron out of here, and we're going to do a little branding here real quick, and I'll show you some different things. So let me get this camera set up. All right, the first brand is going to be an ED, and I tried to do it a while ago, and it wasn't quite hot enough. And the old brand over the years has gotten kind of bent. It doesn't lay flat, especially on something hard. We'll try it again. I think it's hot enough this time. Now, as you can see, that's my old great-grandpa's brand. Now, it's a little bit extra hot, but I did it for that board, because the board's... Now, we'll try a different brand this time. Try to set that right there. Let's see. All right, try my old brand. All right. See how they're coming out? All right, we'll try the Crooked Sky brand. There's enough room on there for it. Okay. Problem with it has such a short handle, it gets very hot. So we always use it in a head gate. You didn't have a lot of room in there. So I'm gonna try to use 2 gloves on it. Well, I got smoke in my eyes. A little bit more right here. Yeah. All right. I kind of messed that up a little bit. I got smoke in my eyes. Anyway. Those branding irons are actually extra hot because of the boards. If it's good on the animal, it wouldn't need to be near that hot. But and it wouldn't catch fire either. Now, tell you about talk about the number brands. I made my own numbers, actually very professional. I did these back in 1990 when we started doing Russian cattle. And you can buy them. Why buy them if I can build them? I was a little bit better by 1990 than I was back in high school. Now I got a couple of them here laid out to get hot. I think they're hot. There's an 8. There's a 7. I built the whole set. Let me get that smoke for a minute. Let me get that smoke for a minute. I'm going to show you a little bit more here in just a second. You know, my coffee's about to get cold. Gigi can drink cold coffee. We'll stop. She bad. ice cold, whatever you call it. I can't stand iced coffee. I like my coffee hot, and mine's starting to get a little bit cool. So hang on. my eyes are running. Not much for cold coffee. It's about to get too cold. Only next thing I want to show you is how my dad and my uncle changed the DN for their own selves. And what we're going to use here, to tell you a little bit about, it's called a running iron. Those brands you saw are called stamp irons. They're stamps. And a running iron, and I'll show it to you in just a minute, is just a metal bar with a curve, a hook in the end of it. And that's what, in the old days, that's all they used. People probably still use them. But also in the old days, that's what rustlers used also. They'd rustle some cattle and put their own brands on them. Or they'd catch some cows. If they could change a brand, they'd take that running iron and change a brand. And an old cowboy back in the day, out on the open range, and he didn't work for some ranch, and he just riding through, and he got a running iron tied on his saddle. He got caught. Chances are that was the last brand he ever used. Justice was quick. It was tough. Maybe not even fair. What if you was riding along, you saw one, you picked it up. Just, what's this? And they caught you with it. Yeah, it'd be tough. Anyway, I'm gonna get this running iron out. I'm gonna show you how it works. And we'll probably end this thing today. So hang on. Running iron is just a curve. And my dad would take it, and it may not be hot enough, and he'd make a line across the top of his brand. Just a straight line. So that's the way he did it. You'd also take one of these irons, good and hot. This is not real hot. And you can change certain letters on a brand. You can change them. That's called a running iron. And my uncle, his would come on around, curve on around. It would curve on around. So you could tell it was like a half circle. So as you can see, I didn't make that line dark enough. It would have been a lot darker if it had been hotter. But you can get the idea of how brands work. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll talk more about brands. I remember when I worked for the sheriff's department, we had a couple of incidences where unbranded cattle were stolen, and captured one guy, captured him almost in the act of butchered it. And well, is it on his property? Well, yes and no, but that won't give you a right to butcher it. You know, you can call, we'll come pick it up. We'll find the owner. Anyway, they dealt with him in the court system. But there was a couple of times we had to work things like that, where it's always unbranded. Unbranded cattle, they get out. They're at the mercy of whoever finds them. And whatever kind of punishment or whatever they want to do with them. Butcher them or sell them or whatever. So that's the controversy. I know it's a controversy. I know people don't want to see an animal hurt, and I understand that. I do. And I asked Ivan, he wanted to be this morning to kind of demonstrate a brand. He said, "Oh no, Pawpaw, no, Pawpaw, no." So anyway, and other animals are branded too. I know back in the day they used to. I've seen horses been branded. I know back in the old days, all government horses had a U.S. branded on them. And I've seen horses, I guess all my entire life, I had brands on them. There was a fellow in this neighborhood, and I was a kid, and I thought this was the most cruelest thing in the world, but then I guess, okay, if you branding, you branding. But I could never do this. He branded his dogs. He had hunting dogs. It wasn't a big brand, but still it was a brand on their side. And I thought, my Lord, why would you do that to your dog? And it's about the same thing I'm talking about right now. Nobody will steal them. Well, maybe not. I think before I could do anything like that to Heidi, I'd rather somebody else do take her, you know, and that'd be heartbreaking, but I could never stand to do that to my dog. But, oh, well, Pawpaw, you did it to your cows. Well, yeah, we did. But that was a way of life, and that's the way people do it, and people still do it. So, anyway, you see me use branding irons that we've used here on this place, and I didn't have them all hot enough. I had one of them a little bit too hot. But I was kind of rushed to get this here video done, because I told y'all last week I wanted to do it, or the other day on the video. I want to get it out to you. And the next time we'll talk about different kinds of identification. And I'll show you some ear tags and how they worked. And we'll go from there. I love you guys. And turn this thing around for a second. All right, I'm going to cut this thing off. And I just want to tell you guys I love y'all and appreciate you. You do so much for us. And I want to say one thing, Mike. A lady texted me, I think yesterday, and she said she sent something for Sophie, and did I ever get it? And I hadn't. And I want you to know that sometimes things don't always come here. It goes somewhere else, and not just local, but just who knows. Recently I got, in fact, I think on one of my Saturday videos, I showed a couple of packages that looked like the Pony Express been hauling them around for a week or two. And because they was dirty, they was torn. The contents were okay, but the packages were like they'd been through the mill. But we've had packages left on the road, stacked up on the road. We've had mailboxes left open with stuff sticking out of the mailboxes. Now, our little mail lady we got now is so much better than what we've had. But now then she has a substitute, and it's not always that type of mail. It may come, you know, the parcel post, or not parcel, but like UPS and FedEx and all these other companies. But and sometimes it goes to a different house. It may take a while for it to finally show back up here. We've had things sent back to us a week or two later or so. So anyway, if you don't see something, doesn't mean I ignored it. It just I may not have got it. All right, catch you guys later. Love y'all. Take care, and hope you enjoyed this video.